Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today I'm very honoured to speak with the ANKR team. We are in the Silicon Valley to explore exactly what ANKR is doing, both now and in the future, with regard to distributed cloud computing. To explain this further, we have the executive team. We have the CEO, CTO and CIO in the house. To my right, we have Chandler Song, the CEO.
Hey guys.
To my left, we also have Stanley Wu, who is the CTO, and we have Ryan Fang as the COO.
Hello guys.
Okay, so now it's time to really explore exactly what ANKR stands for in terms of its tech and in terms of its potential to really revolutionise the distributed cloud computing as a platform and as a potential technology really to revolutionise the technological space. So Chandler, obviously there's a lot going on. Your slogan here states that you are distributed cloud computing on trusted hardware. There's a lot involved in that term. You also explain on your website that you are a framework, or rather a blockchain, that essentially is going to truly enable decentralised cloud computing. So Chandler, to do this kind of thing, mate, you are the CEO. Can you tell us a bit about your background and why you are so well situated to lead this very challenging and ambitious project?
So when I was in Berkeley, I was doing a lot of research in the machine learning and the AI computing, and then I got to use Amazon Web Service as the main computing resources. And then back then in college, it was quite expensive service for me as a college student. And then last year, I got to work for Amazon and got to dive deep into more service in the AWS. And then I feel like the entire space was monopolized by big players, tech giants like Amazon, Google, the Alibaba, Tencent, Cloud. So I feel like there should be a way to definitely revolutionize this entire cloud computing space.
I see. So obviously, your age doesn't preclude you from having the opportunity to really enter into this domain of decentralized cloud computing. We've seen other platforms that have been really significant players to date. But Stanley, obviously your role now, your background is going to be key. You have a strong technological background. Tell us a bit about why you are part of this team and why you are so well positioned to facilitate and lead this out.
Okay, so back like 1 year ago, I'm very interested in blockchain technology and did a lot of research on blockchain technology. And also for the past decade, I have a lot of experience with Amazon AWS service as well. With the blockchain technology, we all know what's the problem with it. It wastes huge energy or effort to do the mining, to do the useless hash calculation. However, like 2 years ago, we have a new technology called trusted hardware, or TE, which is a perfect glue to combine two technology together. And because people already have incentive to join the blockchain network, right. And they also can contribute or donate their computing resource to do the useful work. And TE itself can combine every player together and align interests together, make this network be sustainable. So I think it's a make sense business to me, and I think my background can contribute a lot to this business. That's why when I met with Chandler, I think it's very exciting opportunity. So I decided to join this opportunity immediately.
Sure, and just to be clear, obviously you mentioned trusted hardware. That is in the website and also in the white paper. You have expertise in that field prior to this venture, so it is interesting you know that. Now we turn to Ryan, who is a business expert. He is a serial entrepreneur and is certainly a core member of the team. Ryan, tell us a bit about your background, and obviously you are friends with Chandler. You have an opportunity to have known him for some time through college, but what more can you say beyond that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a very interesting thing is that Chandler actually educated me about blockchain back in 2014, in fact, and got me to buy some Bitcoin back then. That's how the entire journey started. For a bit, I'm more of a finance business guy. Background in investment banking. I have sold a company, an educational startup, earlier on in my college when I was a sophomore in college. I sold education company.
Right.
And when Chandler first came to me, about the idea of utilizing proof of useful work, do this cloud computing platform, at the very beginning, I don't really understand it, to be frank.
Sure.
I'm not an expert, in computer science. I'm a statistics and finance major. But he started to tell me what it is, and I started to think about it and view it in a business sense. If you look at Amazon Web Service, basically income statement, large chunk of their revenue is utilized on infrastructure cost. A big part on human capital cost. Stanley being one of the guys got a lot of pay in AWS, and lastly, they still have close to 30% of operating margin. And from a business standpoint, that's a tremendous opportunity to disrupt. Because if you think about it, a lot of the decentralized things in many ways I think don't make sense, because a lot of the business that's not really generating profit, and if you turn them to a decentralized system, there's no pie for you to share. But here in the centralized cloud computing space, the big players, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Alibaba, Tencent, they have a huge amount of margin in their service, and there is a big pie to share, and to share with each and every single one of us.
Right.
And then just a little story, of us. Ryan's my college roommate. We've been knowing each other for almost 4 years. And then Stanley, we met in Amazon. He was like my boss in Amazon. So, and I think the three of us were definitely the early three members of our team. And then I think definitely we'll carry this project out.
Sure, and obviously you are all three of you are co-founders. You're regarded as that in the literature, and clearly you are no doubt confident to lead this team. And we'll talk about the team in context later. But let's now talk about your vision, Chandler. You obviously, having been part of this vision, you have clear ideas of what you want to do. Let's explore that specifically and tell us what's the plan for ANKR both now and tomorrow.
Yeah, so right now, as you can see, we already have a prototype running. We're running on a few nodes. And then I think, by the end of the year, we are definitely, expected to see definitely a more mature product. And then, I think, in the long run, it's not like we're a core competitor of Amazon Web Service. I think those centralized cloud computing provider will still exist.
Okay.
But definitely, our ANKR being in the space will be a complementary service to the entire cloud space, where people can select cheaper cloud computing resources, and then just earn cryptocurrencies through contributing their CPUs.
So obviously, Chandler, we're talking about two models of cloud computing. We're talking about distributed models. We're also talking about centralized models. In the context, we mentioned Amazon as one example. But obviously, there are other aspects we do need to discuss with regard to ANKR and what motivated it. And Stanley, I'll turn to you now because you are an expert in this technological space. What kind of technological pain points really can you tell us about that really drove your team to develop this? What were the needs technologically that you felt you can address with ANKR?
So I think the biggest problem with the blockchain technology, as Chandler has mentioned, is that the blockchain right now, like Bitcoin, wastes a huge amount of energy or effort trying to do the mining job and to do the useless hash calculation. So I think it has its reason for that to do that, because at the beginning of the blockchain, it has no trusted hardware, so it has no instance or no node to trust. So if I cannot trust anyone, so let's do a difficult math problem to decide who will be the consensus leader.
Right.
But right now, since we already have the TPE, we can build some kind of the trusted environment in each individual node. So we have option. We don't have to do the hash calculation anymore. So we can use the real or practical commercial job or scientific job to feed the mining process, to use that as the power to continue the mining process and to generate the real block, and still make this technology be more sustainable and a healthy environment.
Okay, so let's just clarify that for a moment. I mean, obviously you have a lot of technology, but for those who don't, what you're really talking about is you're looking at pain points like inefficiency.
Yes.
You're looking at issues like insufficiency, lack of scalability, unfairness, and lack of exposure. You're addressing those things through some sort of approach. So Chandler, I want to talk to you for a moment with regard to some of these innovations. Now, if we could put them in a nutshell, what kind of things would you tell us with regard to the solutions to these pain points? And Stanley, will continue on with you. But for example, if we're talking about security, speed, and scalability, how is it that ANKR is going to address some of these problems?
First of all, I think ANKR is not only addressing this problem through blockchain technology, but also through the use of trusted hardware. And then I think for the exposure part, I think trusted hardware in a way can also permit confidentiality, and then give each node their own privacy. And then speaking of the efficiency, I think of course our consensus proof of use will work. Will do a great job, maintaining a self-sustainable blockchain framework. So we're pretty much trying to do it all, but of course we have to do it step by step. And then we start with the consensus proof of use will work, and then we slowly move on to the distributed cloud computing to do our job dispatcher logic, so on and so forth. And then eventually, by the end of the year, we'll have a product.
Right.
And I would like to add some comments about the security. So we are mainly focused on the consensus protocol. So means in general speaking, on high level, we still have all the security design of the blockchain itself, like the Bitcoin and the Ethereum. And as far as the security inside the miner, we will say we use the Enclave Intel SGX. So we create the enclave to do the job inside enclave. So that means all the data inside enclave is in encrypted form, so it's very secure inside enclave. And also for the data transmission from outside the miner to inside miner, it's all definitely based on TLS or PFS. If you guys don't know what that is, basically you can understand it's HTTPS. And also the data to be transmitted can be all encrypted by the public key inside enclave, and also the target enclave can understand or can decrypt and see the data inside it. So it's basically very secure.
Okay, so obviously also inbound in this is something that's more future geared, and it is outlined that this is a longitudinal plan and many aspects will roll out over time in the ANKR white paper. But there is a mentioning of the reliable Oracle service. So what can you tell us about that in the context of a solution?
Okay, so Oracle service is a mechanism for blockchain to bring the off-chain data to on-chain to the on-chain representation. Of course, it has a lot of solutions. It has a lot of different team can provide different way to solve this problem. At ANKR, we also use the trusted hardware as the mechanism to upload data onto the chain. So basically, there are three parts of it. There will be a front-end smart contract on the chain waiting for the request, waiting for the parameter. And there will be a trusted hardware serve as the relay to link the smart contract and also the backend data source. So if anything or any signal happen in the contract on the smart contract, the relay will pick it up and send the data request to the backend data source and fetch it and upload to the on-chain. And also it's because it's based on the trusted hardware, the remote attestation will provide a mechanism to verify this data is really generated by requesting the backend, and also it's really generated by ANKR.
I see. Yeah. So obviously these key parts are fundamental to the ANKR design as you build out. But I want to talk to you, Stanley, about this trusted hardware nature of the title itself. It's right there, and also about the Intel SGX, the software guard extensions. Just how important are those two parts, and exactly what are they, and why must they be built into the ANKR as you build out in the ANKR design?
So Intel SGX is a hardware solution of the trusted execution environment. So basically speaking, it provides a very secure environment for a program to be executed inside it, which means all the data inside the enclave, Intel SGX enclave, will be in encrypted form, and also the executable itself will be signed by the certificate issued by Intel. And also because the blockchain is the perfect technology to integrate the KEE inside it, because the blockchain most of the time is running in a P2P network. You cannot guarantee the physical condition and the physical environment, how the machine or instance is hosted, who can access to it. So using the Intel SGX, we can make sure the program we deliver to the user can be securely and correctly run inside the Intel SGX. And also because of the remote attestation, we can issue a statement like this block is generated by ANKR, with the useful work running in these Intel SGX chips. So that means every other node, even without without the help of Intel SGX, can verify it. So can accept that block as a valid block generated by Anchor.
I see.
Yeah.
And clearly we need a degree in, no doubt, blockchain and many and science, perhaps, or even engineering, to understand many of the things that Stanley's explaining. But clearly, look into the white paper if you'd like to know some of the key technical aspects, because there are a lot of information in there you can learn. But if I now think about business, the person to talk to is Ryan. Now, Ryan, with regard to the overall Anchor architecture, there's references to business application as well. So can you tell us exactly how Anchor can relate to real-world business in terms of use case, or even beyond the blockchain?
Absolutely. So I think there are two parts. First of all, we've actually seen distributed computing since beginning of 2000, right? One of the biggest reasons that it hasn't reached enterprise is because there is a lack of incentive, right? It is already achieved in the current world that people can contribute their computational power, in a volunteer way, right? But the distribution of that is solely in the United States as well as Western Europe, with relatively high income, technology driven people. But we are thinking that all other idle computing power sitting around the world, really need incentive to empower them, to really need incentive to make the idle computer to do the job. Now, in terms of the use cases, so without trusted hardware, you can still have distributed cloud, distributed computing, only in a volunteer way, because it's hard to test and to verify if the calculations are correct, if people are doing the right thing, and there's no privacy guaranteed because, in theory, the node that's running the job can effectively see what's going on, and that's obviously a big red flag for all businesses.
Right.
And we believe with both the incentive model, which can encourage more computational supply, as well as the privacy part, where enterprises and companies who actually pay for those services, we really have a safe peace of mind. They can get a lot of reassurance on this because it's on the enclave, and the job is run on enclave, and there's no way for people to look into it, and so the privacy can be preserved. And I think by utilizing trusted hardware and blockchain incentive together, we can make the use case a reality where businesses can have a distributed nodes to calculate their job in a much lower price point.
Sure. And so, Ryan, with that reference point of businesses, are we talking about any kinds of businesses, given that really essentially you're capitalizing on the CPU computational power for really potentially anyone globally?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, to be frank, you have to have a trusted hardware on it. I think the logic applies not only to Intel SGX, we're also currently working closely with the traditional phone maker, and potentially on the mobile end.
Right.
Because this is direction of the chip makers. Some have their trust on. NVIDIA is developing their T environment, and we like to make this analogy. If you can light a fire by a lighter, it's not necessarily important to use some artful way to light it up with a match, right? So the idea is that
improve the tech.
Yeah, because the technology backdrop is there. The chip makers are making the progress on the environment, and we're really leveraging that to make distributed cloud computing reality.
Well, thank you for explaining that. So no doubt you have a business vision, and there's plans, I would imagine, partnerships we'll just try and discuss and try and get Chandler to tell us, and certainly Ryan, more about those partnerships. So obviously business really is a key component, and Ryan's explained many of the different ways in which Anchor plan to have a mainstay play in the marketplace. But Chandler, with that in mind, there's a buzzword right now in many constructs. We see many distributed cloud computing efforts building in a smart contract. Now, in your white paper, you explain that there are competitors, or perhaps there are other stakeholders in the marketplace, such as Golem, Sonum, Docker, even Dfinity is referenced, and all of them are in the context of smart contracts. Now, you say that you have an anchor solution with regard to an efficient consensus. So, can you tell us exactly what your solution is, and also explain why you don't need a distributed smart contract?
Yeah, of course. So we definitely, since 2 years ago, we've seen a lot of solutions trying to solve this cloud computing space. We've seen Golem, we've seen Sonum. Some of them are leveraging the Docker container to solve this cloud computing issue. And then we also see, most of the cloud computing solutions right now are on the smart contract layer, and then they are limited by the smart contract droplet, the DPS that we're referring to. And speaking of Dfinity, they have a very complex randomized solution to select which nodes to compute the jobs at a certain time. And then I think those and they are only leveraging software solutions. I think they're very hard to update in the development cycle. And
they're also using a different mechanism with the proof of stake, the delegated proof of stake.
Yeah. And then with Anchor, what we're very different with them is that we have a novel solution of consensus protocol, and then we're not limited by smart contract execution, meaning that whenever the miners are ready, they're ready to input their CPU contributions, and then they're ready on the go.
Okay, so Stanley, translate that for us. In technological speak, how important is it that you've revolutionized this system so you're not having to use a smart contract?
I would say because when you talk about DCC, efficiency is a serious issue. So you want your environment can be executed distributedly, and also you want it can be run fast and without a lot of limitation or constraint. So if the job is run inside a smart contract, so first of all, it definitely has no HTTPS request. That means it cannot talk to outside the world, outside the blockchain, and also.
And that's pretty important because otherwise it's just a closed database system.
Yeah, and also if you have some computation intense job, you probably won't want to write it into the smart contract because it will incur very expensive gas fee. And also every node will run a smart contract again just to validate the state of the block. So that's not very efficient way to do that. And to leverage the miner, as we discussed in proof of useful work, every miner can include or call for the different kind of job to run inside the CPU directly. So it don't have this kind of constraint as the smart contract has. And also it can directly use the API provided by CPU, and it's run very fast. And of course it can has way to talk to the outside and even to access the file system or this kind of thing. So I think that as a developer, I will more favor for the latter or for the proof of useful work solution.
I see. Now let's explore that further. Now, Anchor has a very exciting consensus mechanism. It's known as the proof of useful work. It is designed by the team and has also been supported by key and leading experts in the field with very important white papers that have been documented in academic spheres. Now, let's talk about that more specifically. It is the proof of useful work. We've seen proof of work already. So what are the core assets of it? If you could tell us in a nutshell, what really sets this apart?
Okay, so if we compare proof of useful work with proof of work, I think the key difference is what kind of job is powering the mining process. In the traditional proof of work, the miner is trying to calculating the hash in order to find a hash can be less than the target difficulty level, which is the requirement to propose or generate the next block. However, this process can be very, very long and very competing, because right now people like just compete to upgrade their hardware and to build a specialized hardware to improve the efficiency to calculate the hash. But just hash, nothing else. You cannot calculate other kind of job. You cannot do the machine learning and even artificial intelligence. But for the proof of useful work, as I earlier described, we can leverage the computing power inside miner to do the real job for the practical or real commercial task or research task. So we don't need to waste a huge amount of energy just doing the useless hash calculation, and we can still preserve the same statistical model as the proof of work. We still can generate one block every 10 minutes and recalculate the difficulty level for every two weeks. I mean, compared to proof of work, we can achieve the same model, but we just can do more work.
So obviously, Stanley, there's key reasons why you've chosen the proof of useful work and why you've designed it. But no doubt there are advantages to this as well. You've addressed one key one, and that was with regard to energy efficiency. What I did want to ask you specifically is that users who, with CPU computational power, it explains, can execute useful computation under trusted hardware in order to earn rewards. So I want to ask you this. What is one of the key benefits with regard to incentivization?
I would say compared to the traditional proof of work, our miner can get more rewards based on our model. So basically, they can get two types of reward. The first one is the same as proof of work, just as Bitcoin. If the miner successfully generate a new block, they will get reward for that. It used to be 50 Bitcoin, right now it's 12.5. And besides that, we also pay for all the computing resource the miner contribute in our network. So basically, there will be the model is the user who needs the computing power will get ANKR token and use that token pay for the computing resource they need to consume. And also on the provider side, for the miner who contribute their computing power will receive that kind of token as the incentive to join ANKR Network.
I see. So there really is a complete and robust system of incentivization, right down to providing for the resources for the user. Now, if we could talk a little bit more about the core components, and I want to talk to you again with regard to block agents and also useful work providers and miners specifically in the design. How important are these, and what's the distinction between the three?
Okay, so basically in ANKR Network there are three conceptual components. The first one is I call it blockchain layer. It provides the routine blockchain functionality such as download block and get the transaction, propagate transaction, and serve or respond RPC or this kind of job, etc. And the second concept is called the mining layer. Basically, that's the key part of our proof of useful work. For the miner, they will get the transaction from the blockchain layer, and also they will get the useful work from the customer, and they will load and host the useful work inside the enclave and do the mining job. If the mining job successfully generate a new block, they will generate new block. The miner will post this block back to the blockchain and propagate to everyone.
Right.
So, and also in our network, there's also another important part is called the job dispatcher, or on the white paper, I believe it's called the distributed computing engine, and that's the larger layer to decide what miner can get what kind of job. It's still under development, but we will use like the job fair dispatcher as in Spark as our basic model, and basically the idea is trying to distribute the useful work as fair as possible.
Right, so obviously there's a lot of complexities inbuilt in this design. Now, Chandler, if I can go to you for a moment with regard to data feed systems, it's outlined quite substantially in your white paper. Now, there are a lot of problems inbound with some of the data feed systems that exist in there. Can you talk us through a little bit about them and what you're doing in ANKR as a solution to them?
Yeah, of course. There are different types of Oracle, slash data feed solutions right now, and then you can see there are centralized data feed where there's always a middleman that controls the relay of the data. There are also which is quite stupid, the manual human input, which takes forever. There are also ways to maneuver the data at their source. But I know at the end of the day, there's no guarantee for those kind of data source to be successfully and then successfully and securely relayed to the blockchain with authenticity and confidentiality.
I see.
So, and then we're again leveraging trusted hardware, specifically Intel SGX, to design this Oracle service, and then to design an API for any kind of data source right now, because blockchain is very data hungry, and then it lacks data to do the computing jobs. And then we're basically providing a way for end users to upload data to compute for the jobs on our ANKR network.
I see. So essentially what you're doing is you're making it so that a greater amount of data can be used in a more efficient way. Okay. Now, so obviously, Chandler, data is important, but also with regard to distributed cloud computing, there are key advantages, no doubt, built in. So let's talk about blockchain for a moment. What are the advantages of doing this on the blockchain?
Of course, I think what's the most valuable approach by doing this through blockchain is you really not only ensuring the security of each node, but you're returning the value to the end users. Before we've seen many projects from the 90s and even the 2002, we've seen the Bone project, a volunteer computing network, which really lacked incentive structure back then. There were not enough incentive to join the network. People pretty much rely on their ego to contribute their CPUs and GPUs and stuff like that.
Right.
So what we are enabling is a real world, a mass adoption of computing. Even if you're just you're not a tech guy, you can just click some buttons through our UIs and then start contributing. So I think that's what the value is in our ANKR network.
I see. So it's easy to access, and it's low cost.
Yes.
In the sense of really the requirements of your technology and your hardware, which is again a key component. Now, Ryan, if we could talk about future plans, it's outlined that once again we've referenced before, it's longitudinal, meaning that it's not a roadmap that's simply for this year. And in built in that, there are key plans that you want to do technologically. Can you talk us through exactly what they are and what you want to do?
Yeah, first of all, we're gonna have our testnet in September. We're gonna launch our mainnet for the year, and in the future we're gonna have plasma implementation. And in the business
plasma,
end,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, plasma implementation. And in the business end, I think we're gonna have our first business really using the platform when the mainnet is launched, where the businesses previously, let's say, use AWS, do certain computation. Now they can move part of computation to our platform at a much lower price.
Well, let's talk about that a bit more, because often we're hearing the statement that right now blockchain is really just an imaginary concept. It's not really being applied properly. It's more of just a game of chance. So how can you ensure that people will, in the business sector rather, actually utilize ANKR?
Yeah, I think there are this sort of adoption is really driven by incentive. I think so. On the both sides, we would like to say ANKR is a 2B2C business, where traditional, let's say AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, it's really a 2B business because businesses buy computational resources from tech giants. And in our case, we sort of facilitate businesses to buy computational power from everyday people. So the reason the adoption will become a reality is because there are incentives on both ends. On the business end, they are incentivized to do it because it's cheaper, because there is no infrastructure cost, very low human capital cost, and no margin. Because essentially, the funders of us, the ANKR project incentive itself is the appreciation of the ANKR token. And on the user side, they obviously are incentivized to provide their computation power because they will receive the reward that's given by the cloud computing service required for people who need a job.
Sure. So clearly you're going to have a busy job ahead of you, because not only are you building out the platform now and facilitating the business aspect, but long term, the potential for businesses to onboard is infinite if
Yeah.
this is done right.
I mean, yeah, I think the potential certainly is infinite, and I think there is right incentive to do it. For example, we can take a look at other sharing economy successful examples. For example, Uber, Airbnb. It is basically utilizing what was previously wasted, to benefit, something else.
Sure. Well, Ryan, let's get specific now. Let's talk about sharding and storage in terms of future plans. Is that built in your roadmap? And how long will we be waiting to see these kind of iterations?
Yeah, so you can expect be able to use our mainnet by the end of the year. Obviously, the mainnet will be updated with the Plasma implementation, and that will be, I think, early next year. In fact, we've been in very close research relationship with Blockchain at Berkeley on this end, and I think we have a very clear roadmap about. First, we're gonna have a testnet in September, and the end of the year is a usable product, and end of the year, and we're gonna continuously make it better and better.
I see, and clearly technologically, if we'll go across to Chandler for a moment, you have key points in which you want to address. You're hitting the nail on the head with distributed cloud computing first, and then you're moving from there.
I also do want to mention that right now we're only supporting CPU, but in our roadmap. We are definitely seeing trends in the TE environment, in GPUs and other all kind of chip makers, even in mobile. I think in the future we can definitely enable computings on GPU and mobile. We are also investigating in how we can not only do computing but also implement a storage system to incentivize users to make their storage.
Right. So clearly, once again, it's reinforcing the facets that ANKR plans to build, and it is no doubt an ambitious project indeed. So if we talk now about your team. There's been a lot of discussion right now for those who are familiar with the ANKR team. Some of them are younger, some of them certainly are well versed and have a lot of experience. We can see that right now with Stanley being beside us, one of the co-founders. But essentially, the argument put forward from the community is the team is young. So what would you gentlemen, both of you, to my far left and right, say as two of the co-founders that you are potentially too young? What's your response?
So first of all, I think what matters is A, the determination to actually carry it through, and B, the experience that we have with Chandler being an excellent engineer himself. He has a lot of experience in cloud computing space himself. Obviously, Stanley is extremely experienced in the cloud computing side. Song Liu, our chief security engineer, he has a lot of experience in Powerful Network and Gigamon. Xiuyan also a lot of experience in Gigamon, and along with our engineer Kuan Lai Li from Uber, as well as other blockchain researchers, including Hanpian from IBM in the past. I think the team is obviously extremely experienced, and I think there is actually benefit to have young leaders like Chandler and I. Me being a business person, have multiple experience in the past, investment banking as well as
I see. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm hearing the term balance. I'm hearing the term diversified skill sets.
Yeah.
So Chandler, what would you say? Obviously you no doubt read or heard of comments as well about your age. You are the CEO as well, so it has to be asked. If we compare you to someone like Vitalik, for example, he is extremely young. He's been extremely successful. So why can't you be young?
Yeah, I mean, right now, not only operating as the CEO of this company, but also, I'm also doing a product manager for the development team, trying to design, a very good UI and a very good, usable front-end, application for the end users. But aside of that, I do want to mention a little bit that Ryan and I have been friends, and I think the entire team has a great chemistry. We have the same goal, and then we have a great momentum. I think that's why I think we're a great fit.
Okay. So Chandler, obviously your team brings a lot of different assets to the table. But if you could explain to us the skill sets, what essentially are the fundamental skills that different people bring to your team that really make for a very complete ANKR team?
Of course, apart from the leaderships, we also have great engineers. We have great marketing. We have great UI designers. I think for example, Song Liu was a great engineer coming up from Palo Alto Networks and Gigamon Security. He he had extensive, maybe entrepreneur experience before.
Right.
He was even a hacker himself. And then for another example, Xiu Yan, he's an assistant architect for ANKR Network right now, but he was a co-worker of Song Liu in Gigamon. And then I think he brought a lot in his C++ skill.
Right.
And then apart from the team, we also have some great advisors helping us, at the very beginning, including Crystal. She was the former CMO, and currently the advisor to Zilica project, which is a very good project.
Right.
And then definitely learned a lot from her, in terms of marketing plan, strategy, especially in the Asian market. And then we're also advised by Professor David Anderson, which is the creator of Bone Project,
Right.
Who helped us tremendously in the distributed computing technology.
And that's a very exciting development, no doubt, that has happened recently, and we'll discuss a little bit of that further at the end of the interview. But I want to move now across to partners, because obviously with great partners comes great success. So moving across to the businessman in ANKR, Ryan, tell us a bit about the partners with regard to who they are, and tell us beyond solely just the crypto companies as well. So we've got those, and then what's planned beyond them to build out ANKR?
Yeah, so there is a company in China called Singularity Capital, and that's our business development partner. Basically, they have a long list of the startup clients, and we're gonna alongside them to do our business development, because so I don't need to knock on the door of every single startup.
Sure.
So do you want to use ANKR's distributed cloud computing platform to switch it from some of the more expensive centralized cloud? So Singularity Capital certainly is one, and also BlockchainBrad is our research partner, along with CPC and DollaRHacks. And also there are a couple of names we cannot disclose at the moment.
Okay, so you have some in the pipeline.
Yeah. We have several in the pipeline. One is actually in very close talk with us, a large Asia phone maker. We are.
Does that relate to the hardware aspect as well?
Yeah. They are building mobiles that essentially rely on trust.
So that sounds like it's quite a big company from the way that you're not able to disclose. And with every statement we see in white papers and in websites, when you see the word hardware, there's a partnership coming if they're organised, and it sounds like you are. Now, with regard to other companies, I mentioned before, you do have some prominent VCs in mind.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to, you have Cosmos, GVIC, NGC, Link VC, the list goes on. How ambitious are you with regard to having VC support?
Yeah, I think those investors certainly are tremendous help for us, including our lead investor, which is Pantera,
Sure.
NGC, as well as DHVC. They've helped us tremendously. For example, Pantera have a bit more traditional experience, really helping us to, as a Silicon Valley startup.
Right, and Pantera is obviously very reputable in the space, and it has that ability to cross-collaborate between those two marketplaces. So, congratulations on securing those investments, and we'll look forward to hearing the ones that we don't know yet. When can we expect to hear those announcements come forward?
I think we can expect it by the end of the month.
Right, okay. Now, Chandler, I want to talk to you a bit about non-traditional, non-blockchain, the traditional rather than non-blockchain, in the sense that we're in the Silicon Valley right now. Are you in discussions as the CEO with any of those kind of traditional businesses? I mean, we've alluded to some, and I know you obviously can't tell us more, but are you actually doing that?
Oh, definitely. Because ANKR Network in general is definitely, like Ryan said, is a 2B2C business.
Right.
And then while we have a great community supporting us, we have a great group of people who are willing to contribute their CPU on the ANKR Network. On the other end, we always want to have enterprise partners.
Right.
And then definitely we're working with some of the largest enterprise software companies. We're in great business development with them. In fact, going to attend some conference across the U.S.
And apparently globally as well?
Of course.
Right. And we'll no doubt see more of that as it unfolds, hopefully on stage, as we see this co-founded team of 3 get on stage and explain a bit more about the developments of ANKR in the future. Now let's talk about your competitors, or perhaps supporters of distributed cloud computing right now. Now, if we name some within the decentralized space, we have Dfinity as one, and in the centralized we have Microsoft and we have AWS. Tell us a bit about where you're positioned and whether or not you're concerned even that these companies exist.
I think I can answer that question. From a business standpoint, as we have mentioned earlier, compared to centralized cloud, this is going to be cheaper, and we're not saying that this can sort of revolutionize everything. You're still going to host a web service on AWS, to be frank.
Sure.
We are more focused on the computational tasks, sort of bank of tasks, and I think that's a nice complementary to the centralized cloud. And for other decentralized solutions, I think we're doing it in a different approach. Previously we mentioned that many other players in the space do it on the smart contract level, while we do it on the consensus level. Very interestingly, if you think about it, it's almost like plant, giving light and CO2 to give you sugar and oxygen. So the main purpose at the very beginning was generating the sugar, right? But of course, the side product, oxygen, is tremendously important, a great thing to have, right? For us, at the very beginning, proof of useful work, in theory, provides, is a way to generate blocks, right? Is a consensus mechanism.
Sure.
However, the side product, in fact, is that we're utilizing all those computational resources, just like plants provide oxygen. Itself, the main purpose was
So clearly, the ambitions are there to address the needs of distributed cloud computing, just as Google addresses key needs now. But to lead this kind of distribution and this decentralized model, you need a token. So Ryan, I want to turn to you for a moment with regard to the tokenomics, the token plan. Tell us a bit about what ANKR plan to do. Are you going to do an ICO, and what will the token essentially represent in terms of value?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the token, obviously, one, it is sort of a payment, the way of payment, the computational task, the people who want to get their test done, they will essentially pay all the nodes, ANKR token, to have them calculate the task. For example, you have a job to be done, 1,000 people can help you calculate that job, and 1,000 people obviously receive a token from you. Very simple, right? And also, it is the reward that you get from mining. The mining is the proof of useful work mining, basically. You are doing, the more useful work you do, you not only get paid by people who provide the task, but also so the mining scheme here that you will get the block reward.
So we're talking about token purpose here and function.
Yep.
So in that sense, are you talking about utility as the fundamental value point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now let's get deeper. Let's talk about the ICO. Now, firstly, are you doing an ICO?
Yeah, we are having a public sale towards the end of July, beginning of August.
Okay, so talk us through where we're at right now. Obviously, there are key stages for those who may not know. We often see iterations from private sale right through until a public situation. You've mentioned that's going to be late July or August. So how much money is involved in the raise that you're making? Tell us a bit about lock-up periods that are involved and the stages once again.
Yeah, so in our private pre-sale, we are having options for investors, either locked or unlocked. Obviously, for different, the ones we think are more strategic, the ones we are really hoping to stay with us in the long run will have more locked proportion.
Sure.
In fact, all our lead investors have their token locked up for 6 months, even longer.
Okay, I want to stop you there for a moment because that is quite unusual. Often we hear the case where tokens are unlocked for strategic partners because they have more opportunity to negotiate and more power. So why, Ryan, do you think, opt for a locked position?
Well, A, I think is that they do have the confidence in the project, and B, I think it's not right, honestly, to have, let's say, a VC to buy a token at a tremendously cheaper price than general public. That simply is not the right thing to do. Let's say a VC buy it, at $1 a token, let's say, and the public buys it $10 a token. Of course, the VC is going to sell it because that's automatic.
And I ask you sincerely and in quite a serious frame because we've seen quite simply this happening in this space. Even right now, there are literally companies that have done the opposite model to the detriment perhaps of the participants at the very end of this ICO phase where you see people accessing at a very different price and there's no transparency. So firstly, I'd like to say thank you for your transparency about this, and you've explained that there are locked positions for your strategic investors. And you've also alluded to some. are there others perhaps that we don't know about, you can't tell us yet, to come? With regard to the magnitude of some of these strategic investors.
Yeah. We are finalizing some of the strategic investor in this year, in this month, I think.
I see. So we'll look forward to hearing that, obviously, through your channels. Now, let's talk about your lockup with regard to your plan beyond just the private.
Yeah. So after the private sale, for the public sale, token is going to be all
all completely unlocked. But let's talk now about your team in terms of vested tokens.
Yeah.
How long is that for?
Yeah, it will be a 3-year vesting.
Okay, 3-year vesting. So essentially, that's to ensure that people are here for the long term.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Now, if we could talk about mining with regard to in the context of tokens themselves, how important is the mining aspect?
Yeah, it's certainly an integrated aspect of the ANKR system. Basically, you have the 35% that is for the buyer, 20% for advisor as well as the team, and the 45% is for community incentives as well as mining. So mining will be around 20-25%. That's really for the long run, for the reward for people who participate in the network
and to build the ecosystem.
Yeah, it'll be slowly distributed.
I see. And you've mentioned fundamentally the purpose, once again, was the utility. But to reinforce that, I think what you were saying before is that it has this computational fee, and it refers to the mining. Is there anything else you wanted to address with regard to its purpose?
So I think it certainly is a good way of micropayment, in the ANKR network,
right.
And we believe also we're gonna have our more community towards the incentive programs to have more people participate in it,
right.
And that will act as another incentive.
Okay. Now let's talk about your social media, both Chandler yourself as the CEO and Ryan as the COO. You could explain a bit about your plan with regard to engagement, community engagement specifically. What are you guys doing as a team to ensure the longevity of the people's involvement in ANKR?
Yeah. We believe, as we mentioned earlier, ANKR is a 2B2C business. Business partners are important, business clients are important, but people who are providing the job are also important. Tremendous for the project, and I have to say, the team, right from the beginning, isn't your marketing focused team. We're more, tech-driven, development-driven. But we certainly think that's an important part and integrated part in our ecosystem.
And that's great. But what, in a nutshell, what are the key things you're actually doing on the grassroots?
So, for example, Ryan and I will be going on a roadshow pretty soon. Probably by the end of this month, we'll have travel to Singapore and to Korea, to make more presence, awareness around the world, and then we want to promote ANKR Network to potentially every corner of the world, and then we definitely want to reach more audience by providing a awesome product.
Right. And what about social media, Chandler? Are you planning on making sure that there are people who are managing, say for example, a Twitter or a Telegram, whether you use Medium? Are you really focused on these kinds of platforms, and are you taking them seriously as means of allowing people to engage in updates?
Yeah. I think our community manager did a good job answering questions.
Do you have a community manager?
Yeah, we have a community manager answering questions, and Chandler just wrote the first Medium post.
There you go. So Chandler's involved as CEO in writing articles.
Yeah, of course. And then I think after the race, we definitely Ryan and I will spend some time engaging with the community. We're probably gonna occasionally answer some technical and marketing questions from the community.
Sure.
We're all the inquiries are very welcome.
Right, and is there potential for new hires as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I do want to mention a little bit more about hiring. We are actively hiring, and then if you're seeing this, definitely send your resume to career@anchor.net.
So career.anchor.net.
Career@anchor.net.
Career@anchor.network.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure it's in the description below as well. But it is important that you acknowledge it's said by the CEO right now, and there's no one higher ranked than Chandler to explain that. So hiring is happening, in the ANKR network. Now, I did want to talk to you gentlemen about references that are made in your white paper. And I read through all of them, and I noticed that there was one that I don't know much about, and it was referenced as a company called Boink. And it says it's a system for public resources, computing and storage. And I wondered why that was there. So Chandler, could you tell us a bit about, perhaps why that reference is in your white paper?
So the Boeing project, Boeing is short for Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing.
Okay.
It was a project coming out from the Space Science Lab in Berkeley. It was developed by our advisor David Anderson, and then it supported the study at home early in 2000 and even in the 90s.
I see. And just to interrupt, so there's a clear link between this entity and your advisor. Okay.
And then I think ANKR Network is trying really hard to achieve what hasn't been done by the Boeing project, which is first of all a very good incentive structure, and now second of all a better user experience for everyday people to join the community.
I see. So clearly, there's some things that this entity not being able to have that success in the incentive mechanism and weren't able to achieve that. You're certainly suggesting that you can do. So we look forward to seeing how that plays out. Now, if we could discuss some of the key criticisms that we've heard in the community, and we will always do so. I wanted to address one specifically, and that again refers to the reference list of the white paper. Now, there's a paper you've referenced known as the Resource Efficient Mining paper, and there's another one also with regard to the Town Crier article. And I want to talk to all of you about this because the authors specifically are F. Zhang, I. Yao, R. Escriva, and Ari Jules. These articles written were essentially argued by some community members as a platform or as theoretical underpinnings for what ANKR are trying to do. So I want to just really cut to the chase and say, have you appropriated or have you borrowed any of this information in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Fan Zhang, which is the author, the first author for both articles, actually worked very closely with us. He gave us a lot of suggestions about how to realize the theory in actual engineering, and he actually provided tremendous help along the way in the we recognize and think so.
I see. So I want to really clarify this. Are you saying that in any reference you've made, in order to build out your own white paper and your own plan, that it's been consensual and and you had these continual discussions with those parties?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's important that we clear that up. Now, another one I want to talk to you about, and this is specifically for you, Stanley, and this is with regard to any potential risk attacks or vectors associated with it. Now, two have been argued as problems for ANKR. One is suggested as known as the broken chip problem. And essentially, for those who may not know, it's referring to when an attacker can corrupt a single SGX-enabled node and thus win in every consensus round subsequent to that. Now, Stanley, what do you say to that criticism, that this could actually be a serious problem?
Okay, so I will have two comments for that. So first of all, it's extremely difficult to do. So for a real application, Netflix is using Intel SGX to download the video stream and
you said Netflix.
Okay,
right.
Is use Intel SGX to download video stream and then try to protect the copyright of its video or its image. So at this moment, there's any report case for stolen image or stolen videos through Intel SGX.
Okay,
there's already
using
financial incentive for that to do that, but so far nobody successfully did that.
I see. So you're using the mathematics of probability in the sense that right now we haven't seen examples of this being an issue, and we're talking about a huge database, a huge number of users when we talk about something like Netflix. That's one example. So I think that's a fair argument. Now, if we could talk about the next one with regard to these two risk attack vectors, and that is the state chip problem. Now, in this instance, there's the proposal that miners have a financial incentive to power mining rigs. And thus be a problem in that respect. So can you talk us through, if you're familiar with that state chip problem, and whether or not you regard that as valid?
Okay, as Intel SGX, the miner have to, the Intel SGX have to load the executable from ANKR because by mechanism, all the executable have to sign by the certificate or the key issued by Intel SGX, and also it's requested by ANKR. So I will say for anything modified for the miner, it's not able to successfully load into the Intel SGX chip at all. That's why basically it's if it cannot be guaranteed the right program will be loading to the Intel SGX, it will not do anything at all.
Okay, so you think it can't be loaded?
Yeah, essentially. Okay.
Right. Now we've addressed all the concerns with regard to your experience. We've addressed all the issues with regard to your technology, and I appreciate your time today. It's never easy to essentially, respond to public questions about criticisms. But there's one more, and that's with regard to your code. So I'm going to address this to Stanley. Now, Stanley, recently there was a very reputable crypto-based news network known as Crypto Briefing who did an analysis of your code, and for whatever reason it was not a glowing report. That's the best way I can explain that. No doubt you've read it, or you're familiar with that. What would you say to anyone who's inferred in any public setting that your code is less than pristine?
I definitely have read the statement he has made for us, and I will say at this stage our code is not for the delivery yet, and it's still under development. And as you said yesterday, we have successfully run the proof of concept. It's a working code in our environment, and to be honest, there are two parts of our code on GitHub. It's two repo. One is public, the other one is not open to the public.
And how much is involved in that non-public?
So far, we will leave our key aspect as non-public yet.
I see.
Yeah. So I will say probably at the end of the summer, maybe early September, that's the time for our testnet.
Right.
We will probably release more about our code, and it should be more mature. And I will say if anyone wants to analyze our code, make sure our code is ready, to make sure after our code is ready for that.
I see. So as the CEO, Chandler, no doubt you were aware of this review, and certainly Access provided for some of that code analysis. In that, his fundamental statement was that, as I said before, it was less than glowing. It was not a report that was given the A+. Why is that, and what do you have to say?
Definitely, I really appreciate what Andre did. I think it's a very good comment. I think what we're trying to learn from different perspectives. We're always open for criticisms. But I think the review was not that harsh at all. I think Andre did mention a little bit about our proof of use work being a rather ready product.
Sure.
But I think at this moment we don't have that much attention put on the documentation of the code or the cleanness of the code. I think Andre rather focused on that part of the code. I think we're definitely trying to improve that part in the future.
Absolutely. Well, there's been a great deal learned today as we've explored all aspects of ANKR. It is something that certainly is revolutionising distributed cloud computing. That's the DCC of blockchain and also of businesses right now and in the future. We've learned so many aspects of their team. We've learned about their tech, and we certainly look forward to learning more about them as they build a business, a real company for the future from the Silicon Valley. Thank you very much to the CEO, to Chandler Song. Thank you very much also to the CTO and to the COO, and that is Stanley and Ryan as well. We've appreciated being at the ANKR headquarters here in the Silicon Valley. Stay tuned. As the community, you'll become more informed as they build out more of their updates, more of their tech, and we'll certainly be looking forward to seeing how they involve themselves in the business community. Thank you very much again, and it's Brad Laurie signing off as the BlockchainBrad on behalf of all those who want to know more about excellent companies entering the blockchain space.